Welcome to the Ninja Chuan podcast. My name is Isaac Kamens. This is a bi-weekly podcast where my friend Jess O'Brien and I discuss internal martial arts, Qigong, and meditation. Our next season is going to heavily focus on the life and times of Hong Yi Xiang, one of our grand teachers, and the book of his son, Hong Yi Xiang. So before we got into that, I thought it'd be a good little refresher for people to hear our episodes we did about Hong Yi Xiang way back in 2020. So this is our, I believe, 9th episode from our first season. The audio is not great. We were still getting our sea legs, as it were. So I did my best to get rid of the pops and clicks, but the creaky chair still makes an appearance, and it is what it is. Anyway, so I hope you enjoy the little bit of a review about Hong Yi Xiang, and we will be back soon with the season 4. All right, thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves and be well.
So welcome back to the Ninja Chuan podcast with Isaac and Jess. We're continuing to talk about Opening the Energy Gates of Your Body by B.K. Francis. And the next section begins like this. When he was able to travel, he returned to Taiwan. Here he practiced the internal arts with a passion, working with Bagua fighting master Hong Yi Xiang for 4 years over. So this teacher was a big impression on him, obviously, and you can see Hong Yi Xiang's mentioned in a couple of his books, and he describes him as a teacher. Also coming back and forth to Hong Kong and Japan and wherever else he was traveling in India.
Right.
And so Master Hong is, you get this description that he's like this hardcore, gruff, gravelly old guy with a cig hanging out of his mouth at all times. And he's just a portrait of a classic Chinese martial arts master. So when we look a little further at Master Hong, I wanted to pull from Robert W. Smith's book, Chinese Boxing, which gives a great biography of Master Hong. And he describes him like this. My first meeting with Hong Yi Xiang left me disappointed. He looked like the epitome of an athlete gone to pot, overweight, unshaven, with an omnipresent cigarette dangling from his lip. Coming from the judo tradition of sober ritual and cleanliness, it was something of a shock. I was a member of a small class of foreigners being taught by him in a public gym. Because of his tremendous power, I persevered for a year. Robert Smith describes him as just unshaven, uncouth, and just one of those tough Chinese martial arts guys. Not like in the cleanest, well-lit location, but more of a rundown kind of vibe.
Yeah, it sounds, from what Bruce said, he taught in a fairly rough neighborhood too. So it was an interesting experience just getting there, I think.
And I think, the Xingyi we've done with Bruce has a little bit of that flavor of Master Hong's style, I think, and that sort of heavyweight, hard-hitting, stepping power that comes from Xingyi.
Yeah, I always said that, I think that it essentially is he does Wang Shujing's power stuff. Hong Yi Xiang is the form and the application, and Liu is the internals and the spiritual side of it.
So Robert Smith goes on and says that he had quit training because there were too many forms. And that's interesting because I think that's referring to the Tang Shu Dao system that Master Hong created, where there's a bunch of...
Right.
The Tang Shu Dao system was a big influence, I think, on a lot of the, Westerners who went to Taiwan to learn Chinese martial arts. And I know, Kumar trained in that system too when he was there learning from Master Hong. There's a whole lot of preliminary forms and basic forms. Babu Da is the name of one. There's a whole structured process similar to Chinese, maybe closer to karate style progression. Continuing with Robert W. Smith's statement, I have said he was powerful. For his bulk, 5 feet 7 inches, 220 pounds, he moved quickly, however. He could break a stand of 4 bricks supported on 2 weathered bricks, flush on a table with no support. He had broken 3 bricks in this way, but he was not consistent. He failed the time he tried before me. But he was quick to add that this breaking revealed nothing but static power. This type of training, he said, was unnecessary. Qi and correct technique, always incorporating a circle, were all that was necessary. So I think that speaks to the fact that in internal martial arts, breaking bricks is just seen as mostly a parlor trick, although it sounds pretty impressive. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I think the key statement there is he says, it's about making a circle and having proper alignment. That's a very like subtle statement, but there's a lot to it, I think. He also mentions chi, which he doesn't normally talk about that, I don't think.
Right. I don't think chi is one of his number one things. So it's interesting he mentions that. I mean, just from your perspective, I mean, what would you say is when do you incorporate that circle in Xing Yi? Because Xing Yi is seen as sort of a straight shooting martial art.
Well, I mean, I think all internal martial arts and Neigong use that idea of, you have circles on the inside. So within a joint, you can articulate a circle, right? So even though the external movement may look linear, there's that sense that the whole thing of it has a circle, shoulder, the elbow, which is the same like in cloud hands or whatever, that there's a circle in your shoulder that makes the thing continuously, moving, and it doesn't stop. And so that idea of power coming from a movement and alignment, I think that's the big piece that Bruce probably got from Hong Yi Xiang, was how to apply the Neigong to a martial art situation is different than how to get the chi or the power, right? So once you have it, then there's a whole thing of what do you do with it, and I think that was Hong Yi Xiang's specialty.
So when you land a punch on somebody, when does the circle come into play?
A bit like a train, the front of the train is going straight, but the wheels are making circles.
So that incorporates that circular within the straight within the circular that Xing Yi always promises.
Right. I mean, it's far less visible in Xing Yi than it is in Tai Chi or Bagua, but it's still there. It's more done inside the body, not externally. So energy gates is more like the way you would do it in something like Tai Chi, but the internal component is still there in something like Xing Yi. It's just the physical motion doesn't match up quite as much.
Here, I wanted to pull a little bit about Master Hong Yi Xiang from the Power of Internal Martial Arts book, which we haven't looked at too much yet, but there's a few things about Master Hong. Master Hong spoke with a gravelly voice that sometimes conveyed gruffness, but in actuality, Hong was an intelligent, perceptive, well-educated, and articulate man. And so that speaks to that sort of gruff exterior, but he had an in-depth understanding of what's up.
Well, there's that footage of him in the BBC thing, and you can hear him talking a little bit. He does kind of have this rah, 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 sort of tone to it, But,
and then he keeps talking about that the potential for misreading Hong based on interpretation of voice tone raises an important point about Bagua people. I have met many over the years who practice Bagua for all sorts of animal, human, and spiritual reasons.
I think he might be talking about a little bit about himself there, but who knows?
Yeah. Definitely. Some have been saints, some have been sinners. The only thing in common about them is that they all tended to be people of exceptional innate intelligence, regardless of whether they had a formal education or not.
I think that speaks to the idea that martial intelligence is also a thing. People that understand how to use their bodies and their minds to do stuff like that. I don't know what else you would call it, but it is a form of intelligence.
Definitely. I mean, it seems like Master Hong was definitely a huge part of this system, and I think I can only imagine the standing practice they did must have influenced the material in opening the other.
I think Hong Yi Xiang also influenced Bruce just in terms of how he taught and sort of the way he conveyed information and stuff. And so I think he was a huge influence on him personally, as well as material. I think material wise, I think a lot of that stuff he absorbed and then applied to more like the Wang Xijing or Liu's movements, but kept the sort of the flavor in there a little bit. That sort of, you can see it when they use martial arts. It looks a lot like the way Hong Yi Xiang did martial arts. It's just some of it's body type, but some of it's clearly that was where he learned a lot. Yeah, I think that's part of it. You kind of absorb
everybody gets a little bit of like, you kind of watch your teacher do something, so you try to mimic their body flavor, if you will, and that takes on, sort of a transmission of its own, right?
Definitely. Next, we return to the opening the energy gates of your body Qigong set. The next section begins standing, dissolve downward through the entire body. And this is where you take that dissolving and you put it to work step by step, going through all the way. So the first part of it says, starting at the crown of your head, dissolve that point or area as completely as possible until you have an internal sense that it is not possible to dissolve that point or area any further. So, I wonder, somebody might wonder, how do I know that I've dissolved it and I can't dissolve any further than that?
Well, I mean, I think it's in moment to moment, there's a sense that there's either something there that you can access and there isn't, right? So you try to feel it, right? And if you don't have any sense of feeling, or it's just kind of like, that's enough. It's sort of like if you feel like you are hungry or something, right? If you don't have a sense of being hungry, you're just not hungry. And I think at a certain point, it has that same kind of quality that you can feel when there's a release. And then it just kind of goes, okay, I'm cool. I'm stable. I'm happy. And then that's when you move on to the next phase. Or it says to you, don't fuck with me right now. I don't want to be messed with. And, you wait till the next time. Because there are places in your body where you hit them and they just basically tell you no.
So there's a skill level involved, so that one day you might be dissolving a spot and you can't go any further, but then maybe a different day you can go further and you're able to, find a deeper level of it. And so every day you might be on or off a little bit and have a different dissolving experience in the same area.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sense that, it's never the same twice, because it's, your body's always shifting a little bit, and your mood changes, and everything, the world around you changes. So how you feel inside your body is going to be reflected by that. So, especially if it's like something's bothering you, that's going to seem a lot more sort of prevalent than if it isn't bothering you. And so your attention will be drawn to that thing or to what's attached to that.
But if you get to the point where you can't release anymore, then consider it a success for the moment and move on to the next spot.
Or don't even consider it a success or a failure. It's just a thing that happened and it's time to go on to the next thing. There's no, there's no judgment about it. I mean,
that's what worries me. Yeah. People do judge themselves,
One of the most important things about standing is just being okay with whatever happens, right? And not saying, well, this was what I wanted to have happen, or this is what it was supposed to happen. It's just, this is what happened. And there's no, good, bad, or whatever about it. It's just, you were going forward on the path and you went forward on the path. And as you went forward on the path, you saw things, the less judgment you put on it, especially while you're doing it. I mean, if you want to judge it afterward, that doesn't really matter. But you don't want to, while you're doing it, the most unproductive thing you can do is start judging what you're feeling as good or bad, because that's all just opinion. That doesn't mean anything. So
I think maybe to me the deciding point is, when are you feeling at some sort of improvement in your life on some level? If you can honestly improve some part of yourself, and that's something you can stand behind. You don't have to worry about what happens on any given individual day. Is there an overall improvement?
Yeah, I mean, sure, that long term, I think that's a good strategy, but just in moment to moment of the thing is there, I felt the thing, and now I feel it differently. But more feeling isn't always better feeling. And I think you're going for more feeling, not better feeling. So long term, that's going to move towards feeling better. I mean, that's been the historical thing that people have seen with Qigong. But the piece in there about it's the work, right? It's energy work. So it's not always fun to go to work, but you still get benefit from it. It's just the process of it may not be what you would categorize as pleasant, And part of dissolving is recognizing pleasure is just as much of a thing to dissolve as pain, right? So the feeling of, oh, that feels amazing is on one level the same as, oh, this hurts, right? That those are both extreme senses of something that's not just in that the comfort. If it doesn't, when it feels comfortable and it feels stable, you'll know, and it will allow you to move to the next place. When it doesn't and it's agitated in any way, good or bad, it's going to kind of keep you stuck on it.
So the next section speaks to you begin dropping from level to level through your body. So you're starting at the top, you're moving your way down, and at a certain point, once you dissolve, you move to the next spot. You then drop whatever energy remains undissolved at the first place down to the next place where energy is bound. So you combine what you weren't able to dissolve with the next level down, and sort of take all the unresolved stuff with you along the way as you traverse down your body.
Yeah, I mean, one way to think of it is the stuff that's gone from ice to water, right? Water moves with you, right? So if it's really, really stuck, it's not going to move. It's just going to be stuck. But the assumption is that as you move through, you'll get something to kind of come loose, and that at least what energy you do have moving, you want to kind of keep it going, sort of in this like kind of a snowball effect.
So by the end, you dump everything into the root of your energy body and into the energy of the earth. Release the internal sensations through the soles of your feet into the ground as far down as your awareness continues. So that's talking about the energy body.
Yeah, and I love that it dump everything. It's just that sense, it's just clunk, just like
a bucket you just pour over.
It's just like a lug, It's like,
because dissolving doesn't necessarily have to take a long time. It can happen, rapidly.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can equate it to a car wash, right? You can just dump a bunch of water on your car. It'll be a little bit cleaner. You can spend hours and hours scrubbing it with a toothbrush. Those qualify as washing your car. It's just one's way more detailed. So dissolving is the same thing. When you first start, you're hitting big body parts and major energy gates at best. That you can feel a few big energy places in your body because they just light up and they're weird and you've never felt that before. And you feel pain in large chunks of your physical body. Then you get to a little bit more like relaxed and you start feeling spaces in between the chunks, right? And then later it's like, more space and less chunk. And it's just that process of kind of awakening things, I think is, that's the skill, right? The skill is waking up your body, making it more alive.
So when it comes to the soles of the feet down as far as your awareness continues, how do you suggest somebody gets that feeling all the way to the bottom of their feet and then beyond that? That sounds pretty hard.
Well, it's the same as the one where you start above your head. The way I see it is that the next set works more with the energy body and less with the physical body. And this one works a little bit with the energy body and mostly with the physical body. So that little bit above your head and that little bit below your feet and that little bit beyond your skin that you're letting everything dissolve out to, that's that little bit of spiraling, quote unquote, spiraling energy body inside of energy gates where you're not spiraling yet, but you want to at least have a sense that there is something beyond your skin. Your energy doesn't stop at your skin. It goes a little bit past that. So, the only way to feel it, I think, is to feel it. I know that sounds kind of, whatever, Taoist like things like that. But you start by saying, okay, well, I can feel the bottom of my foot, right? I can feel the skin on the bottom of my foot touch my shoe or the floor, right? And then you can go, okay, well, I can feel maybe 1/8 of an inch beyond the bottom of my foot, right? And it just sort of slowly expands as your awareness gets stronger. The same way it's going to expand past your fingertips, although people seem to have less of a problem with accepting that that's a thing than doing it with your foot. The idea that you can project energy out of your hands, not that many people will argue with about But the idea that you can do it with your foot is like somehow that becomes a bigger deal. But it's the same thing. It's just further away from your head, so it's harder to feel it.
So I always do the thing where you touch you put your palms together and you feel some heat, and then you pull them apart, and each progressive distance, you can still feel that heat for quite a ways. And that's a sense of being able to feel at something beyond your skin.
Right, and if you were flexible enough, you could rub your feet together and do the same thing with your feet, I guess would be one way to do it. Usually it's done, as you stand. One of the first big things that people get, not always, but generally, you start to feel heat in the bottom of your foot. Not pain, not burning, but heat. Like there's something actually there, this energy, this field around your foot starts to get warm. And sometimes it hurts a little bit, but it's just that sense of, there's definitely something at the bottom of my foot. And when that starts to wake up, it's like, you have flashes of it where it's like, whoa, I felt something go through my foot. And then, it sort of goes away. And then over time, it's like, it's a chicken and, now you see it, now you don't kind of thing. And it just starts to appear more often than, and then eventually it's something you can kind of call up on demand. But, it's sort of like, how do you feel the tip of your nose, right? I mean, well, you just kind of you can touch it and that will start the process. But then there's this other thing that has to take place, and that's the awareness of it. So dissolving, in a sense, is just a refinement of awareness.
Looking further at the next paragraph, the human energy body expands and contracts. So this section is talking about that, what you're talking about, that, the physical body's fixed, but there's an energy around you. The size of the energy body, or what some in the West call the aura, can grow or shrink many feet depending upon the vitality or weakness of a person's internal energy. So he says that some days your energy might only penetrate an inch into the ground, and some days it may project many feet.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. It's sort of like you just don't know how it's going to be, from day to day, and it is what it is.
Hey, folks, hope you enjoyed that little flashback to the past there. I think we're just going to leave it there. We've got one more episode about Hong Yi Xiang from back in 2020, so we'll air that next time, and then it's on to season 4. You can also check out our Facebook page and our Instagram page, which has images to go along with the episode. And if you want to listen ad-free, you can join our Patreon for $5 a month. Listen to the episodes early and get them without ads. All right, take care of yourselves and be well.